Hello everyone. In this video, we will be going through an impersonation or a hypothetical React Native interview for developers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the whole process where when you jump on a call with somebody to interview, or when you are giving your interview for the job role. This interview session will help you understand how things go from both sides. So what we'll be doing is we'll be going through the number of questions which you need to ask or need to answer in order to either hire or getting hired as a React Native developer. It's going to be really simple and straightforward. So it will have the normal questions about technology, but it will also cover a base of what you need to look for in a person whom you're hiring for a React Native job or role. Okay. So I've just added this interviewer's image on the video so that it impersonate the similar environment as you're in the interview, and then I'll be asking the questions and then also answering it. Right? Okay. So let's get started. Okay. Hi Ash. How are you doing today? I'm good, thank you. Yourself? Yeah, good, good. So before we start your interview, would you be able to tell us more about yourself, what you do at your current job, what your primary contribution to the team, etc.? Sure. I am currently working as a tech lead with my current company, focusing on delivering complex, large-scale applications from discovery, scoping, budgeting to completion. But it does not limit to that. I also look after crafting innovative solutions from both front end and back end angles. I am instrumental in designing the strategies for migrating legacy on premise application and storage servers to the cloud. For example, on premise servers to GCP or AWS cloud platforms, with a specific emphasis on the React JS as a key technology. My primary contribution to the team are I educate and define how various components, modules, and technologies will work together. This indicates designing the backend using Node.js and the front end using React. I make informed decisions about which technology and library within the main stack will be most suitable for the project requirement. I review submitted code by team members to ensure it follows best practices, maintaining consistency and adhere to the coding standards, while also conducting regular code quality checks. And I also provide guidance and mentorship to team members, especially junior developers, by sharing best practices, design patterns, and architectural guidance. Some other key areas I add value is performance optimization, security, scalability, integration with APIs, continuous integration and deployment, issue resolution, documentation, project planning and estimation, team collaboration, and various other activities. This has further reinforced my interest to solve real life business problems from a technical perspective. And my experience combined with stakeholder management make me a strong asset to the IT department of our company. Great, thank you so much for your intro. Okay, so let's get more into the technical aspects of this role. So, can you please explain what is the difference between React and React Native? Sure, my pleasure. So React is a derivative of React DOM, whereas React Native is a derivative by itself. You know, React is a JavaScript library, whereas React Native is a framework for cross-platform apps. Um, in React, virtual DOM renders browser code. In React Native, native APIs is used to render components. Um, in a very simple words, in React, HTML is the output when it comes to DOM elements uh, plus JavaScript, whereas in React Native, it is JSX. Okay, that's great. Have you ever heard about Flux? And if you have, would you be able to throw some lights on it? Sure. Flux is an architecture of React which complements React with the concept of undirectional data flow. Um, for example, it's not a framework or a library. It is used to manage application state along with Node.js event emitter modules. So, in my personal opinion, it's how you want React to work in sync with your states. I haven't used it much, to be honest, but I do understand the basic concept behind it. Okay, that makes sense. And thanks for that. Um, okay, have you ever used Redux or Zutsland? And would you be able to tell me more about what Redux is? Sure, sure. Redux is mostly used for application state management. It maintains state of an entire application in a single immutable state tree. I think it cannot be changed directly, but you can use dispatchers and selectors and actions, reducers, etc. to change states. Um, we I think we have to use actions and reducers to make any changes, in the state by using Redux. So yeah, it's basically a state management application. Okay. Would you be able to elaborate on how we can do it? What kind of hooks we have to use to utilize Redux capabilities? Sure, sure. So one of the famous hooks we have in Redux is use dispatch. Use dispatch is basically a hook. It allows you to send or dispatch an action to the Redux store by giving the action as an argument to the dispatch variable. And on the other hand, use selector hook allows you to extract data or the state from the Redux store using a selector function. Um, the other thing which would add more value to understand how Redux help us developing an application is in order to make sure the state is immutable, we could use a package called Immer with Redux. And Immer is nothing but a small library created to help developers with immutable state based on a copy on write mechanism, a technique used to implement copy operation on modifiable resources. Okay, okay. So that's good. So what about if you don't want to use Redux and you don't need to maintain a state across the whole application, but you do need to store some data globally in your app. How would you do that? Well, in that case, I would be using async storage. If the business logic tells me, or the business logic required not to use Redux, sync storage is nothing but a key value storage system that is global to the app, and it should be used instead of local storage because it's better. It is an unencrypted, asynchronous, and persistent storage mechanism but we should never use it for storing tokens or secret. Now, one thing to remember is async storage is kind of deprecated, like, React website, or you go on React's open source website, they will tell you not to use it. It's kind of deprecated. A lot of people still use it, but they're more suggesting to use other packages in order to store data globally for your app. Okay, okay, I understand. Okay, so can you tell me what is the difference between a class component and a functional component? Sure, sure. So a class component requires to be extended from React, whereas a functional component doesn't. It just takes props and return React elements. A class component has a state, and a functional component is stateless, but it can use state hooks to maintain states inside it. A class component has its own life cycle. A functional component doesn't have any life cycle, so that's why we can test it on its own. Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. Um, Tell me more about React Native, and why do we use it? What's your opinion? Why do we use it? Sure, sure. Um, React Native is an exciting framework, that enables web developers or JavaScript developers to create robust mobile applications using their existing JavaScript knowledge. It offers faster mobile development and more efficient code sharing across iOS, Android, and web applications. Um, this all happens without sacrificing the end user's experience or application quality. Okay, that's good. That's good. Um, so, what are the difference between React Native, an app which is built, or if you want to build an app on React Native, versus if you want to build an app on native platform, for example, for iOS on Swift and for Android on Java? Sure. So there are benefits which is more towards the business side. So for example, if you develop an app using React Native, it exceptionally increases delivery time. It exponentially increases developers experience. um, it increases productivity by speeding up the development. And the key benefit of creating an app using React Native are incomplete without mentioning that the user experience and user interface remains the same across all the platforms. Whereas if you develop application if you compare it with the native application, you have more superior control over code. If an application that heavily depends on OS like ARKit, and needs hardware access like camera, microphone, touch ID, and so forth. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't use some of them with React Native, but it's better to use native applications if you have extensive use of this particular capabilities of your device. Also, native environment allows full utilization of device and system capabilities. So these are the key benefits, and in my opinion, developing an app in React Natives gives you more business benefits compared to technological benefits. You can ship the app faster. The developer experience is good because you have lots of developers who already know JavaScript, so they can code in React Native fairly quickly. And it delivers the value to the end customers faster. So that's the main difference. Okay, okay. That's good. That's good. Okay, so let's get a little bit of deep dive into the React Native paradigm. So have you heard about flat list? Would you be able to tell me more about if you have? Yeah, sure, sure. If you need to render list of similar items from an array, or the data is very big, you can use flat list. And you can re-render the data with using extra data prop on the flat list. So basically, if you have a list of similar items fetched from an API, and then you assign it to a array variable, you can easily use flat list to list it down on your application. Okay. Okay. Could you tell me more about the difference between a flat list and a virtualized list? Sure. Flat list is recommended for rendering basic flat list with simple data and layout, whereas virtualization or virtual list massively improves the memory consumption and performance of large lists by maintaining a finite render window of active items and replacing all item outside the render window with approximately same size of blank spaces. So basically, you use virtualized list mostly to make sure that your memory consumption is lower and your performance is enhanced. Okay, okay. So can you tell us more about life cycle of a component? Sure, sure. A component's life cycle has three main phases: mounting phase, updating phase, and unmounting phase. The mounting phase begins with a component is begins when the component is first created and inserted into the DOM. The updating process occurs when a component state or props change. And the unmounting phase occurs when a component is removed from the DOM. Right. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about um, some React Native syntax like view, safe area view, scroll view. You must have heard about them. Yeah, I did. I did. Okay. What sort of syntax or elements you use in React Native for creating a button? Well, I usually use touchable opacity, but some people also use pressable, and that depends upon the use case. Touchable opacity is more robust, in my opinion, because it gives you a simple function which you can invoke on click on or on press, and do the required or perform the required business logic. View is the top level syntax or element in React Native, which could hold nothing or even itself inside it. So it's nestable. Safe area view. The purpose of safe area view is to render content within the safe area boundaries of a device. It is only currently available on iOS devices with iOS versions 11 or later. But if you want to utilize the similar kind of utility in Android, then you can just put some kind of alternatives, like create some layout with style sheets, and then make sure that it comes under the safe area view of the Android screen, phone screen. Okay, okay. What about scroll view? So scroll view is like more if you need to render generic content in a scrollable container and the data is very small, you can use scroll view. For example, let's say menus. You have 20 menus on a page, we can use scroll view. Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. So let's move further towards more technical sides. So could you, so you mentioned about components and props in the components, and then states, etc. Can you explain what is the difference between props and state? Sure, sure. So props are immutable, you know, states can be mutated. Um, Props are used mostly for passing data and settings, whereas state stores simple view state like drop down options, etc. Props are passed from parent to child. States are managed by its own component on its own. Props are unidirectional in flow and they are read only, whereas state can be reused, private, and modifiable. Okay, that's good. That's good. So Ash, tell us more about hooks. Do you have? I'm sure you must have used a lot of hooks, and then tell us more what it is, how we use it, and how it improves a developer's experience while developing an application. Sure, sure. Hooks were introduced into React from I think version 16 somewhere, 16 or 17. You can use React features without writing a class with hooks. Um, with hooks, you can extract stateful logic from a component. This enables us to test these them independently and reuse it. Um, Hooks allows you to reuse stateful login without changing your component hierarchy. This makes it easy to share hooks among many components. It would go ahead and say, I would go ahead and say, it makes it easy to even share it with your developer community. Okay. And another thing I want to emphasize on is hooks do not work inside classes. Okay. Okay. So, have you heard about these new hooks introduced in React 18? Use deferred value or use insertion effects? Yes, I have heard about them and I have used a few of them. So, used deferred value hook lets us solve the slow render issue by adding a delay before some information is calculated. For example, this works similarly to debouncing and throttling, and throttling in that our deferred value is calculated only after the necessary state modifications have completed. Whereas use insertion effect hook provides a powerful and intuitive way to handle DOM insertion operation in React application. By executing code immediately after an element is inserted into the DOM, you can perform various tasks such as DOM manipulation, animation, initialization, and cleanup operations. Okay, okay. Can you talk about another hook called use ID? Yeah, sure. Use ID is a React hook for generating unique IDs that can be passed to elements for accessibility attributes. Okay, okay. What about use sync external store? Well, use sync external store is a custom hook available in React 18. It lets you subscribe to an external store, reads updated value from that store, and updates components if needed. By external store, I mean browser history, local storage, third party libraries, etc. So basically, use sync external store hook can be used to read data from your third party libraries and then manipulate the state of your component based on the data available. Okay. Um, can you tell more about use callback? Why it is used for? Sure. Use callback is a hook that will return a memoized version of the callback function that only changes if one of the dependencies has changed. it returns its function when the dependencies change, while use memo call its function and returns the result. Oh, okay. Um, it's nice that you mentioned about use memo. Can you tell us more about it? Yeah, sure. The React use memo hook returns a memoized value. Think of memoization as caching a value so that it does not need to be recalculated. A very simple example for this is you have a function and it is using use memo, it is utilizing use memo. So if the function is just multiplying x with 100, if you send 1 it will send you 100 back. If you send pass 2 to the function, it will send you back 200. If you pass 3 to the function, it will send you back 300. But again, if you pass 1, it will send you back 100, but that function will not be called because it is using use memo. It will just utilize its own capability to send you back the same results because you have provided the same input. That's how we use memo. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so in terms of hooks, then I think the last one I have for you is about how do you use imperative? Right, right. Okay. React's control flow approach approach is top to bottom, right? So top to bottom is a better for most use cases, right? Keeping our code predictable. When it comes to forms, there is a shift to using the opposite control flow of bottoms up or HTML to React code. This is normally simple to do, but sometimes it means we need to implicitly control the form from above. This is a performance readability trade-off, and which we can make to give users and developers a better, more native experience. The use imperative handle hook allows us to effortlessly take charge of these edge cases. So in a layman's term, normal React control flow is top to bottom, but sometimes when we are implementing forms or user inputs, the approach shifts from bottom to top. Use imperative hook allows us to manage this performance readability trade off effectively. Got it. Got it. Okay. Right. That's good. So, would you be able to talk more about context APIs? What are the context APIs in React? Sure. The React Context API was introduced in React 16, I think so. And it allows us to pass data through our component trees, giving our components the ability to communicate and share data at different levels. React Context APIs is more suitable for scenarios where state updates are infrequent or simple, and centralized state management is not critical. Okay. And what about use context then? So use context. So first we need to understand context in order to understand use context. So context is a React feature for sharing state between several parent and child components with the help of a provider. Use context is a hook that let you easily hook into context, thereby accessing shared state. Using context is Using context is one method of state management, which can be combined with other methods such as Redux. Hmm. What about use reducer? Okay, I think we need to understand use reducer by understanding use state. So use state is a simpler hook that allows you to manage a single piece of state, while use reducer is more powerful and allows you to manage more complex states that may have multiple values and require more sophisticated updates. If you find yourself keeping track of multiple pieces of state that rely on complex logic, reuse reducer may be useful. Okay, that's nice. What about useref? Well, useref is a hook that allows to directly create references to the DOM element in the functional component. It is a hook which allows you to persist values between renders, and it can be used to store a mutable value that does not cause a re-render when updated. Okay, okay, that's fine. Right. So I have few more questions for you, but it's more related to the basic JavaScript. So I would like to know more about debouncing. What do you think about it, and what does it does, and how we use it? Sure. Debouncing is a programming practice we use to ensure that time-consuming tasks do not fire often. It stalls the performance of the web app, and that's why we want to use debouncing practice. In simpler words, debouncing is removing unwanted input noise from buttons, switches, or other user inputs. Okay, so what about throttling then? So throttling is a technique that limits how often a function can be called in a given period of time. For example, execute this function at most once every 100 milliseconds. In other words, by using throttle, we don't allow to our function to execute more than once every x millisecond. Right. Okay. Have you used Axios npm package, and why do you want to use Axios on top of what the fetch API, which is available in React? What are the benefits of it? Sure, sure. So Axios is a simple package which helps you, make API request. But the benefit of using Axios on top of Fetch is you have interceptors and deceptors in it. So interceptors and deceptors allow you to modify the request or response before it is sent or received by the server. And interceptors are useful because they allow developers to add custom functionality to requests and response without modifying the actual code that makes the request. And that's the benefit of using Axios. Hmm. Okay. 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 So the last question I think I want to ask you is, what is promise and why do you use it? Sure. A promise is a JavaScript object that allows you to make asynchronous calls, and it provides a value when this asynchronous operation completes successfully or produced an error if it doesn't complete. Okay. Huh, that's fair enough. Okay, so that's good then. I think I have finished all of my questions for now. Thank you for your time for this interview, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Right. So you've seen how the React Native interview has been done, or you can prepare these questions for it. If you want to schedule a mock interview for yourself, if you're appearing for an interview, or if you want to take an interview, then I'm happy to help you. Just go on this website, peoplespots.com, and then just scroll down in the bottom, and then just to book a call with me, and then I'll be able to spend maybe half an hour or an hour with you to explain how things work out during the interview, and then potentially help you out with your questions. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.